now that we're out from under the hood, we're going to do the next section of the truck on this pre-trip inspection. We start here at this marker light. This marker light is a marker light, a turn signal, and a four-way flasher. It's amber in color, the bolts are present and tight, and it's clean, clear, not cracked, not damaged. From there, this rear view mirror mount. We told about the rear view mirror on the end cab. We just have to describe the mount now. Bolts are present and tight, properly mounted, secure, and it's not bent, cracked, or damaged. From there, we go to the door steps. The steps, clear debris, the bolts are present and tight, it's properly mounted, secure, and it's not bent, cracked, or damaged. The door handle, the door lock, opens and closes properly. Inside the door, we have rubber seals. These rubber seals are rubber, so it's ABC, no abrasions, bulging, cuts, properly mounted, secure. The door works properly. It's mounted with hinges. The hinges are bolted on with bolts. The bolts are present and tight, and they're not damaged. That gets us out of the door. Now, we come to the fuel tank. Under the fuel tank, there are no leaks or puddles. The fuel tank bolts on with fuel straps, tank straps. They're present and tight, they're not damaged. The fuel tank cap, it's on tight, it doesn't leak, properly mounted, secure. There's no leaks nowhere in the fuel system. From there, back to the catwalk steps. This allows you to get up on the back to hook up. This is your catwalk step, the very same description as your door steps. Bolts are present and tight, clear debris. You're not slipping, you don't want to fall off of this truck. It's properly mounted, secure, not bent, cracked, or damaged. These are your catwalk. They're properly mounted, secure to the frame. Bolts are present and tight. They're not bent, cracked, or damaged, and they're clear of debris. We have two reflectors on each side. They're clear, clean, not damaged, not broken. They're properly mounted, secure. Okay? Then we got the air hoses. They bolt to the tractor. They hook onto the trailer with glad hands. The glad hands have a rubber seal. They don't leak. The glad hand doesn't leak. The hoses are rubber. There's no abrasions, bulging, cuts, and they don't leak. This is a power cord. It carries all your electrical power to the trailer for your lights and everything. It hooks on the tractor and the trailer with safety latches. It's rubber lined, rubber hose, rubber coated. It's not no abrasions, bulging, cuts. There's no cuts in it, no splices in it. Okay, so what we're doing now, we're checking the drive axles out. We're going to check the fifth wheel. We got the truck apart so you can see exactly what we're talking about. Either one of these axles, when you go to the DMV, you can describe the front axle or your rear drive axle, whichever one you can see the best, whichever one you prefer. It doesn't matter. But from the rear axle, you can see it all better. We have the drive shaft. It's just like the steering shaft. It's properly mounted, secure. It's not bent, cracked, or damaged. It's bolted on with universal joints. They got to be clear of debris, no wires, no nothing hanging on them, and they got to be properly greased. Then we got the stabilizer bar. It bolts on the rear end and the frame. Bolts on, properly mounted, secure, not bent, cracked, or damaged, and the bushings are good. Now, from there, you got your air hoses for your brake chambers. The air hose bolts on at both ends, properly mounted, secure, not leaking. The air hose, no abrasions, bulging, cuts because it's rubber. Then you have the brake chamber right here, properly mounted, secure, not bent, cracked, or damaged. The clamps on tight. You have a slack adjuster and a push rod on the bottom side. It not bent, cracked, or damaged, properly mounted, secure. It cannot travel more than 1 inch, and you have to release the brakes and pull it by hand to check it. From the slack adjuster push rod to your brake linings, once again, brake pad, it doesn't matter which one you want to call it. It's not dangerously thin, properly mounted, secure. It's clear of debris, and no less than 1/4 inch thickness. To the brake drum, The brake drum is not bent, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted, secure, clear debris. From the brake drum, we're going to go to the control arm. The control arm is the very same thing as the leaf spring, except we have an air ride suspension. That's an airbag right there. That airbag bolts on at both ends. It's rubber, so there's no abrasion, bulging, cuts, and it can't be leaking. This is a shock, a hydraulic shock. Bolts on at both ends. Rubber bushings are good. There's no leaks. It's not bent, cracked, or damaged. Properly mounted, secure. To the control arm, like I say, it's just the very same thing as the leaf springs. It bolts onto a mount. The mount is a control arm mount. The bolts are present and tight, not bent, cracked, or damaged. The control arm isn't bent, cracked, or damaged. It's not shifted or broken. It bolts on with U-bolts to the housing, the rear end. The U-bolts are present and tight. So that gets out of there. Everything on the inside, the rear end. We got our tires. They're rubber, they're ABC, no abrasions, bulging, cuts. The drive tires and the trailer tires, they got to be at least 2 32 of an inch in tread depth. The steer tires have to be 4. So it's 4, 2, and 2. They got to be evenly worn, no abrasions, bulging, cuts, not leaking, properly mounted, secure on the wheel. These bud wheels, now some tires have spacers, different trucks, and the spacer or the wheel, they have to be butted up, no gaps in there, and that way make sure the wheels are properly aligned when they're mounted. From the tires to the wheel, once again, no abrasions, bulging, cuts, not bent, cracked, or damaged. On the wheel, it has a valve stem. I didn't tell that on the front tire. You can go back and tell it, but you have to tell it. It has a valve stem. It's bolted on tight. It doesn't leak, and it's got a valve stem cap. And we check the air with an air gauge. You have to tell it on each axle. The bolts are present and tight. If they were loose, you'd have shiny rust. You'd have shiny threads or either rust trails on the wheel. The lug nut holes can't be cracked or distorted or wallowed out. This is axle seal. On the steer and the trailer, it's a hub seal, but this is the axle. It doesn't have a sight window, and if you pull these bolts off, the axle comes out. So this is an axle seal. Bolts are present and tight, not leaking, properly mounted, secure, and not damaged. Okay, that gets us off the drives. Let's do the fifth wheel. The fifth wheel. This is what hooks the trailer up. It's got 3 sections to it. The mount, the platform, it lets the fifth wheel swivel as to how you're hooking it up, if it's level or whatever. And then the skid plate. The mount, properly mounted, secure, not bent, cracked, or damaged. The bolts are present and tight. The platform is properly mounted, secure, not bent, cracked, or damaged, and it's properly greased. The skid plate is properly greased and not bent, cracked, or damaged. You got a locking handle that works the locking jaws that locks securely around the kingpin on the trailer. And the kingpin can't be bent, cracked, or damaged. The trailer, when you hook it up, the apron of the trailer sits on this skid plate. There can't be any gap, no daylight or nothing. It's got to sit flat. That makes sure that the kingpins are securely wrapped and locked around the kingpin. This handle has to be locked into proper position. This is an air slide fifth wheel. It'll slide. These notches are for the locks on the air slide. The hoses don't leak. They're properly mounted, secure, no abrasion, bulge, cuts, and the locks are locked in the proper position. The fifth wheel has to be slid back far enough so that when you turn the trailer, the rear end of the tractor, the framework, doesn't hit the landing gears. You have to have clearance so you don't hit anything. Space between the wheels, between the tires. There's no gaps between the wheels in here. Everything bolted up, and there's no debris. There can't be any rocks, any wood, or anything wedged in between these tires. You got to make sure there's no debris between your tires. The wheels, we described the wheels, valve stem, check it with an air gauge. axle seal these reflectors. They're properly mounted secure. They're red in color. They're not cracked or damaged. You got a reverse light. It's clear in color. Properly mounted secure. It's not cracked. You got tail lights. Properly mounted secure. Not cracked or damaged. They're tail lights, turn signals, four-way flashers, and brake lights. You got mud flaps. They're bolted on properly. The bolts are present and tight. The mud flaps are rubber. No abrasion, bullet, cuts. They're the proper height off the ground. They don't drag or anything. You got DOT reflector tape. The reflector tape's not damaged and not peeling. Now, that gets us off the side of the truck, your drive tires, the rear of the tractor, the rear end of the tractor. Now, we're going to go to the trailer. That'll be our next part of the inspection.